What's going on? I'm Patrick Jagir, the Cosmic Alchemist, and welcome to today's video. So this video I've chosen to title, as you've seen, Donald Trump, the Death of Politics, and the Rebirth of Self-Esteem. So I'm going to get into what that title's all about. So to do that, the first thing I have to point out is that for a long time, we as people here on Earth have had a serious problem with ass kissing, and we've kind of had an addiction to it. Not necessarily to our own fault. We've been raised to basically put people with status and power, money, education. We've been raised to put these people on pedestals. And we do this at the expense of our own self-esteem. So, self-esteem is having dignity and knowing your own value, and being able to set boundaries comes with that, because the world has always been and will always be full of people who will take a mile if you give them an inch. And this has a lot to do with boundaries, and there's a lot of different things mixed up in this, you know, and in kind of the standard upbringing in society. We're basically raised to be very borderline and very codependent, and we have very weak boundaries, and people with stronger wills can dominate us. So this happens in government, it happens in religion, it happens in the educational system, at work, and even in our own families. People with the stronger will tend to manipulate us and dominate us. Mosquito. So anyway, can't give them an inch. So anyway, we've been raised in this condition where we have low self-esteem because we think better of other people than we do ourselves. So as a consequence to this, one of the groups of people, and relevant to the astrology right now, with all this activity in Pluto, with Saturn in Capricorn, and then with everything that's been going on in Sagittarius, what's most relevant right now is that for years and years we've put politicians on pedestals, and we do this at our own expense. So when you put someone else on a pedestal, you lower yourself down. You know, that's the other side of the coin. People talk about putting other people on pedestals and raising them. Well, the unspoken part of putting someone on a pedestal is that you have by default lowered yourself, or you've kept yourself on a lower level. So this has happened with politics, you know, and people think that politicians are going to save them, and it's always the politicians that they like. And the side that people choose can always do no wrong, and the other side is always evil. And sometimes you can get people to acknowledge that, you know, both sides are totally screwed up, but then they throw in the caveat, well, my side is less bad. And that's that's just lame. That comes from, you know, saying my side is less bad. That's a product of low self-esteem. It's also It's a central theme in dysfunctional relationships, dysfunctional families, dysfunctional marriages, which are full of narcissism. You know, it's always like, well, my side's less bad than yours, and you know, your side screwed most of it up. If people can't push the view and the agenda that the other person screwed everything up, they'll concede to, well, that other person or that other side screwed everything up more than me, or me and my family. So we have very chronic low self-esteem in our culture, our society, and we need to change this. And the whole age of Aquarius that's starting is a window of opportunity to do that. It's the age of Pisces, which we've been in for the last 2,000 years, which Christianity and Islam and really in modern Judaism arose in, and which democracy arose in. Age of Pisces is all about pyramidal hierarchies. And if you can't be on top of the pyramid, what you can do is ingratiate yourself to the people who are at the top or near the top, or just someone who's a little closer to the top than you. So again, we've grown up to really put people on pedestals and to kiss ass. To kiss the asses of people with more money, bigger house, more degrees, more status, more power. And so we have to stop doing that. And to help us do this, we've got Saturn in Capricorn, and Saturn in Capricorn is really kind of cleaning house with authority and government, and, restricting their power and their overreach. And Pluto was in Capricorn back in March. It retrograded back to Sagittarius, but when you get Pluto and Saturn together, especially in Saturn's home in Capricorn, you're going to just start learning things about government and about authority and about leaders that were hidden from us, or that we were just in denial about, and we're going to be forced to face them, because Pluto is a god of the underworld, and he signifies our deep unconscious minds. So the cats are coming out of the bag, and information that's just been hidden and suppressed and that we've been in denial of for centuries is going to be out there. So a lot of people are going to lose their minds in the next couple of years, because revelations and disclosures are just going to keep hitting the media. So, another thing that is going to help us to stop putting people on pedestals is Jupiter and Pluto retrograded back to Sagittarius, which is all about belief systems and worldviews and, the truth. The truth doesn't exist, but people will tell you that they know it till they're blue in the face. So November 10th, Jupiter and Pluto are going to meet up in Sagittarius, which is Jupiter's home sign. And Jupiter expands anything that it comes in contact with, because Jupiter is the largest planet. It's the element of ether, it's expansion, it's growth. So Jupiter is going to expand the energy of Pluto, which is that hidden side, that dark side, that underworld, or that unconscious within all of us, and within the collective, within society, within humanity. So a lot of hidden things are going to come to light. Then Capricorn is going to, on December 30th, is going to go back to Capricorn to be with Saturn, and then Jupiter is going to follow, and you're going to have that whole Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on the 21st of December. So getting Saturn and Pluto back in Capricorn, that's going to be all kinds of revelations and disclosures of all kinds of secret, hidden, dirty secrets about government, about leaders, about how society works, about all hierarchies. And you get Jupiter there, it's going to expand all that, and Jupiter is actually going to recreate the myth of Jupiter and Saturn, because Saturn, or Kronos, was the ruler of the old gods, and Jupiter was his son, the chief of the gods of Olympus. And so Jupiter, or Zeus, overthrew his father and took his power and took control as the new sky god. So we're going to see this in the world, because we're always acting out these archetypes, these thought forms, basically these templates of thought. So an old order is going to be overthrown, not just in the United States, but in this world, and even in our own personal lives. So the old traditional hierarchical authority and wisdom, if it doesn't work, and it's not in alignment with our evolution, with our highest good, with our spirituality, it's going to get thrown out. So that brings us back to Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is a very controversial, contentious figure. A lot of people, very polarizing. People love him or hate him. And really, the misrepresented majority, I think, are the people in the middle, who they don't hate him, they don't love him, and they see him as a human being, and they recognize him for what he is. People who love him turn him into a god. People who hate him turn him into Satan. But neither of those are true. There are no devils or monsters in the world. They're just human beings, and people do things because they think they have a good reason to do them. So the thing with Donald Trump is and I don't even think he really knows he's doing this. He is he's basically putting us into a withdrawal. He's breaking us of our addiction to kissing the asses of politicians, because people since the age of television, and even before that since the age of cinema, which Hollywood and the news is part of Hollywood. It's not some intellectual forum where people inform you because you're so important, because the editorial boards at news networks are the corporate sponsors. So that whole thing is gone with news. So news is part of Hollywood. Hollywood is propaganda, and it's entertainment, and it's distraction. So basically people have been watching the news, and they get all dreamy-eyed, and they start kissing the asses of the politicians they love, that they think are going to save them and make the world better. And this is complete delusion, because only you can make the world better through self-improvement. And everybody does this. The more people who do this, it catches on, and the world basically changes spontaneously, because this idea of self-improvement will pervade the population. So, and you can see this how, when you improve yourself, people in your life see your example and they just start doing it. So that's how we save the world, it's self-improvement. But anyway, people they get all dreamy-eyed about their favorite politicians. They think they're going to save them from the boogeymen, the other party, whether you're Democrat or Republican, the other party is the boogeymen. So people think their favorite politicians are these messiahs who are going to save them from the boogeymen. And they put them on pedestals, and they think that because they're so educated and they're so powerful, powerful, and they have all this status, that they're good people. But I know people who've worked in government as congressional staffers, even White House staffers, and the people in government are all, I'd say a majority, they're addicts, they're alcoholics, they're hooked on drugs, and every last one of them is human, just like us, and they have all the same emotions. They get greedy, they get egotistical, and they do all the same shit. If you knew what went on when the cameras were off with people in government, if you knew what they did in their private lives, most of us would be shocked. I know people who've worked in government with very well-known people for years, and the shit they get up to, it's like anyone else that that's a funny thing in this world. It's like if some guy who pumps gas for a living gets caught for a DUI and it comes out he spends all his money on cocaine and hookers, then we think that guy is a complete loser. But when a politician does it, or if somebody we know who's a doctor or a lawyer or an investment banker does it, everybody makes excuses for the person with the big job and the big education, because he or she is under so much pressure and her job's so important, and that's not who he or she really is. Well, they're doing the same thing that the alcoholic, drug-addicted gas pumper does, but everyone just makes excuses. So everybody makes excuses for these politicians, and it's been going on for a long time. And before, people were making excuses and kissing the asses of democratically elected leaders. They were doing the same thing for the church leaders. They still do the same thing for their church leaders. They were doing the same thing for the monarchs who ran their country. So democracy it's not what it looks like. It was basically something that was needed because the people became smart to how monarchies worked, and they started overthrowing them and getting sick of them and getting discontent. So we still have royals. They're called senators and presidents and congressmen. So anyway, kind of rambling. So the thing about Donald Trump is that he's a big break in the pattern, because national level politicians, they get public speaking training, they get acting training, and they take part in scripted soap operas. You know, political news has been given to us in soap opera format, and it's very scripted, it's very predictable, and it looks real. Well, Donald Trump's a reality TV guy. He's not a soap opera guy. He speaks off the cuff. He says what's on his mind, and he doesn't have the polished Ivy League pompous demeanor. So he's aesthetically, he's a disaster compared to what we're used to, and it freaks people out. And people are very caught up in the aesthetics of things, and you know, it's not about how intelligent a politician is or what they're trying to do. It's just about the aesthetics of them and what they come off as and how pleasing they are to watch or listen to. And aesthetics are a big part of narcissism, because narcissists are very preoccupied with the way things look rather than the way things are. You know, and I hear people saying all the time that they're like, well, I know politicians are manipulative, bad people, but Donald Trump is just so offensive and he's so mean. Well, so basically what you're telling me is that you'd rather live a sweet little lie rather than deal with the truth, because you know they're all bad. You just want nice ones. So he's not playing a nice guy. He's just being who he is. And you know, it's a funny thing with a lot of people in this world, in our families, in our workplaces, our churches, society in general. If you want to make enemies with people, if you want people to not be your friend, then just be yourself and say what's on your mind and stop playing people's ego games. And it's not going to get you invited to a lot of parties. Take it from me. So that's the thing, is Donald Trump is just being himself, and he's just speaking off the cuff, and he's crass, and yes, he is egotistical. That's something that just can't be denied. Hang on a second. So, and that's another thing, is that the world and everybody in the world is a mirror for us. And so everybody we deal with, they can be a light mirror or a dark mirror. You know, and the light mirror shows you all the good things about yourself, all the, you know, the warm fuzzies, and then the dark mirror shows you your dark side. So Donald Trump, especially for people who hate Donald Trump and get angry about him and think he's just the most horrible person, Donald Trump is a dark mirror, because he shows people who they are deep down. And so he does this, and it's interesting because and everyone in our lives, you know, and the people in your life who you like the least teach you the most. So whether people love him or hate him, he shows us our dark side. He shows us our light side too. But leaders are just creatures of the people that they lead, and so we always get who we deserve. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how educated, intellectual, how good you think you are. You get who you deserve. You get who you deserve in your life, your personal life, and as leaders too. So the thing is about Donald Trump and like everyone else in the world, they're mirrors. They're light and dark mirrors. So we always get the people in our lives and the leaders who we deserve, and they reflect who we are. And there's nothing you can do about that. Like I said, it doesn't matter how educated, how intellectual, how good you think you are, what you've done in your life, that's just the way it is. So, because yes, he is egotistical, he is He does have a narcissistic streak that's very considerable. He's showing that to us. He's showing us that we have that in us. So, especially if you don't like Donald Trump, when you look at him, you get a look in your own dark side. That makes people very uncomfortable. So, and to be fair, people who love him, they refuse to see not all of them, but a lot of them refuse to see the egotism, the narcissism. So, those people are totally oblivious to his degree of egotism and narcissism. They really don't even know it's a thing. So, people who hate him, they're in complete denial about their egotism and their narcissism. And they think that they're just altruistic angels, non-selfish angels. And people who hate him really accuse everyone else of being selfish who doesn't agree with them about pretty much everything. So that's the thing about Donald Trump, is and this is going to take some time to unfold in the wider world, but he's taking the presidency off of the pedestal and putting the president down at a human level with the rest of us by showing us how presidents are egotistical and narcissistic just like the rest of us. We all have it in us. I have egotism and narcissism. It's part of being human, because you're here on earth to live out desires and to accomplish your agenda, and your agenda is your plan to live out your desires. So we all have it. I have it. You have it. So Donald Trump is taking the presidency down to a human level. A lot of people are freaking out about this, because even if they're intellectual atheists and they're totally above religion, they think they're above religion, well, they've turned politics into a religion. And they want the president to be a perfect little angel that just gratifies all of their prejudices and preferences and just keeps their echo chamber going. And an echo chamber is when you're just surrounded by people who tell you what you want to hear all the time and just gratify your emotions all the time by telling you that they agree with you. So he's a total wrench in the gears, and really he's living out an archetype. He's living out the archetype of Loki. Loki was the trickster god in the Norse, the Germanic pantheon. Every culture in the world had a trickster god until the Christians and the Muslims outlawed the gods. So it's everywhere in the world, and it's in our distant past. It's in your genetic memory, no matter what culture, what racial group you come from. So they all have tricksters. And tricksters get a bad reputation. The Christians and the Muslims actually turn the tricksters into the devil. But the tricksters are actually the gods or the goddesses who care most about evolution, about not just human evolution, but the evolution of the entire universe. And they play tricks on people when they get too self-righteous and they get too comfortable in a status quo. And when you look at the name Loki in old Proto-Germanic, you can trace the name back to the term for lightning strike. So Thor is the lightning and Loki is the lightning strike. It's the point where the lightning hits the ground. It starts a forest fire. And forest fires, we see them as completely negative because they burn luxury real estate. But actually, forest fires are very healthy because nature has a way of clearing out old dead wood, of clearing out refuse. It's just the thing she does. So forest fires are very healthy things if they're allowed to happen regularly, because the dead wood burns away and there's no accumulation to have a giant forest fire. So, this whole relationship between Thor and Loki and the lightning strike, the lightning bolt and the lightning strike, that's why in the myths that Thor and Loki are always traveling together. And basically they're best friends. Whenever Thor gets in trouble, he goes to Loki. So, and in popular movies and comic books, Thor is just kind of portrayed as this big muscly guy who's, not very bright, but actually when you get into the research, you look at the origins of his name, Thor is actually the god of the higher mind, the enlightened mind, the divine mind, the human mind that's plugged into divinity and universal consciousness. So, Thor is a protector of humanity, presides over partnerships and marriages and all that kind of stuff. So Thor definitely fights for what you would call good, and Loki is seen as sinister, and this is an inaccuracy because the god who protects all that is good wouldn't be a best friend of a sinister devil. So Loki, this trickster, he plays tricks on people to snap them out of their own self-righteousness, to wake them up. So, like I said, we all live our lives according to archetypes, and archetypes they're ideas that mythology is based on, that mythology preserves our memory of. So we all act out these stories of mythology in our lives. The hero's journey is the big one. It's when you have some kind of a challenge in your life and you go through hard times and a transformation, and then you triumph and you come back and you can teach people how to do it. So we're all living out mythology all the time because it's based on these archetypes, these ideas that exist in our minds. So, and these archetypes are the same in all cultures, just the names and the details change. So anyway, Loki in the Norse myths teaches the gods the greatest of lessons, because the gods get very self-righteous, they get arrogant, and they get just stagnant in the status quo, and the status quo has to be torn down. So Loki does this by orchestrating the final battle. The final battle in the Germanic myths, in the Norse myth, is called the Ragnarok. The Ragnarok is it's the final battle between the gods and then the forces of basically the unconscious, and just the forces of what we call animal instincts, just base instincts. So it's a whole long story, but basically the gods, they basically restrain Loki, they imprison Loki for telling the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. He calls them all out at a banquet, and they tie him up and put him in a cave. He eventually breaks out, and he helps release his children. So the big Fenris wolf, which symbolizes anger and aggression and survival instincts, and then the giant world serpent, and then his daughter Hel, who rules the underworld. He leads forth the armies of the dead, which are the unconscious and the things we can't let go of. He also leads the fire beings, the fire demons, the forces of destruction, and the giants. And the giants are just beings of forces of nature, and that have no boundaries, and they consume everything in their path. So in this myth, the gods get self-righteous and they get stuck and stagnant in the status quo. He leads these forces of destruction to tear down their status quo. So that's the thing we have going on right now. We've put leaders on pedestals who we see as gods for so long, but they're really just humans like us. So we're getting this painful realization that they're human just like we are, and this is a thing we have to go through. So that's Donald Trump's mission from the universe, is to show us that leaders are just human just like us, and they're screwed up and flawed and all that just like us. So people get really upset at this idea, and they think, well, if we don't have leaders to show us the way and to hold our hand every step of the way, we'll have anarchy and chaos. And it's like, well, no, we won't. What we're going to have in the place of kissing ass and worshiping leaders who we think are gods and messiahs is that we're going to get our self-esteem back. And self-esteem and ego are two very different things. Ego actually arises when people have low self-esteem, when people don't value themselves and they don't think well of themselves, then they have to put on airs and they have to be arrogant and they have to shit on other people and criticize other people and tell other people they're wrong, tell other people how wrong they are all the time and how right they are. So, ego and self-esteem are this total, they're kind of a yin and yang. Really, ego fills the void where self-esteem does not exist. Because people with genuine self-esteem, they don't have to put people down. They don't have to criticize people every minute of every day. They don't have to flaunt, the things they own and their status and their education. They can just kind of be. And a thing that a person with real self-esteem can do is they can lead themselves, and they don't need someone to hold their hand and show them the way all the time. So, and the reason, again, we need political messiahs, we need religious messiahs, is because we don't have self-esteem and we can't lead ourselves, and we don't know what to do with ourselves, because if you don't value yourself, you don't see your gifts, you don't see your natural gifts that you have to offer. So, this has been a journey of mine. I was really, when I was young, I was very trainable, and I was scared of my parents. So I did well in school because I was told, you better do well in school or else. So I did it, and I just kept following it, and I went to great schools and did all this prestigious shit. And, I was kind of like a family show pony, and, almost had some weird kind of local celebrity, and, I was really successful in my first career. I went to the Naval Academy. I was an intelligence officer, the whole bit. I went to boarding school before the Naval Academy, and I got sick of the whole thing. I got sick of playing the game. I got sick of playing the whole ego game where, everybody tells themselves how wonderful they are, and everybody who's playing the same game sort of encourages them and doesn't call them out. So, I'm no better than anybody else for accomplishing the things I did. And the things I accomplished didn't make me happy. Well, those things didn't. Things I've accomplished more recently have made me happy because they're more genuine to me. So, a bit of a digression, but when you have self-esteem, you're not egotistical. And ego is running wild right now. It's been running wild for a long time. The family I grew up in, especially my dad's side, were very much working class snobs. And they didn't have money to hide behind, so they got snobby about their sad little salaries and their retirement accounts and their college degrees, and it's sad to think back and just see how devoid of self-esteem people they are and how egotistical they have to get to fill in that void. So I'll wrap this up, and the point I'll leave you with is that, Donald Trump is tearing down politics, and he's showing us that how egotistical we all are, how that we all have narcissism within us, and he's destroying the myth of our political messiahs. But we can't have genuine self-esteem for that to happen. And really, you want to talk about the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius, it's about equality, not because political messiahs are going to give you and enforce your equality, enforce it by shaming people and getting the police to arrest people. Aquarius is about equality because it's about people seeing their own value and not having to suck up and kiss ass to authority figures and political messiahs and intellectual messiahs and religious messiahs. So the age of Aquarius is the death of messiahs that tell us what to do all the time. So it's a painful time for a lot of people, and with everything Pluto's doing, Pluto also is, the United States is having a Pluto return. Pluto has about a 245-year orbit. So Pluto is coming back to where it was on July 4th, 1776. And it's going to be 2021, 2022. It's going to come back to that same point. So, and when the United States was born, Pluto was in Capricorn. The United States is a Sagittarius ascendant by my reckoning. Well, by the Kelleher chart reckoning. Kelleher was a Vedic astrologer. So I think it's the chart that works the best. So anyway, Pluto is in Capricorn. Capricorn is government. And so with this Pluto return for the United States, where Pluto goes back to where it was when the United States was born, we're going to get all kinds of shocking revelations and disclosures about how government has really worked, how religion has really worked, what authority figures really do. So this is going to pull out all kinds of truths about the deep state and about how that all works. And people talk about 2021, 2022, they talk about the leader is going to be unseated and something's going to take its place in this big change in government. And everyone's like, oh, well, either Donald Trump or Joe Biden is going to step down from office. So some people are like, oh, well, even if Trump wins, he's going to get taken out of office. And, oh, even if Biden wins, a woman can be president. Well, with this Pluto return coming, especially, it's Pluto return in Capricorn, especially with Saturn there, Biden's not going to win because he and Kamala Harris work for the deep state. There's just no two ways about that. He's been voting for wars and black ops and dirty wars for 45 years. He's been voting for warfare for 45 years. Kamala Harris has been putting people in jail for marijuana possession. Well, not anymore, but she did that as an attorney, as a district attorney in California. And they both support censorship. Anybody who doesn't agree with the Democratic Party gets censored. So they're not going to win. They represent the deep state, and the deep state is the old order. It goes back thousands of years. And then I don't think it's Donald Trump that's going to be removed in 2021, 2022. I think the deep state's going to get castrated. And so, yeah, Donald Trump is doing a lot to break down the deep state. It's not just him, it's the people who sponsor him. It's the corporations, the people behind him who are doing this, but he is the figurehead and the symbol of it. So anyway, he's doing a lot to break down the deep state, and I'm not saying he's like the best guy ever, but he's fighting the deep state, and because of this, you're going to see all kinds of October surprises this year, and especially with this Mercury retrograde, which started yesterday. Going to be all kinds of stuff hitting the news. You're going to find out more about how Joe Biden basically did the same thing in Ukraine that Dick Cheney did in Iraq. He orchestrated this whole regime change to make money because he was the inside man in government for big corporations and banks. But Biden just did it on the sly using CIA rather than having a military invasion like Dick Cheney did. You're going to find out stuff about Burisma Oil. You're going to find out stuff about the Clinton Foundation. It's all going to come out. So politics is dying. And politics as we've known them are going to die, but we get a chance to bring our self-esteem back. So a lot of people are going to crack up through this. Just stay present, and remember that just because you went to college and you can watch the news doesn't mean that you've been told the truth about anything. That's the biggest conspiracy theory. So that's all I got for today. Give this video a like and a share, and check my site out at thecosmicalchemist.com. I highly recommend a Vedic astrology reading with me. It's a great way to find a roadmap to navigate these challenging times and really the rest of your life, and get a closer look at what your hidden talents are and what you have to offer to the world. I also do rune readings. It's a great mind map. Shows you where mentally you're blocked at the moment, so that you can basically rebalance your mind and get more what you want out of life. Also have some Qigong videos for sale for download. Great mind-body practice that relaxes you and helps you to get in touch with the natural environment. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.